And good evening. This is episode 3 of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. I'm your host, Matteo, Chief Mobile Opinionist, and today I am joined by Cristiano Betta. Hello, Cristiano.
Hey there.
Welcome to the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. Thanks for being our second guest ever.
Thanks for having me.
Apologies, Lukasz is on his way. He's held up after some Sunday activities he engages in regularly, but he'll be joining us later. In the meantime, let's have a chat about you. Who's Cristiano Betta?
I'm Cristiano Betta. I'm a developer advocate for Box. Developer advocate is somebody who represents a company not towards your regular customers, but towards kind of software engineers in general. In that role, I used to fulfill this role at a company called PayPal, and in that role, I travel quite a bit. I think in the last few years, I've been freelancing, but I think in my time at PayPal, I had 1 year where I traveled about 2/3 of the year, and that's where I met Matteo as well.
Yes. So we bumped into each other briefly in 2014 at the Samsung Developer Conference in San Francisco. And then we were both speaking at DroidCon Dubai the following spring. So we've bumped into each other a few times. And you very kindly then came and spoke at the IDs of March last year. So thank you for supporting that event. And okay, so you're a developer advocate. What is Box? What do they do?
I'm only just starting in this role, so I don't have the standard description of what it is yet. It's basically a file sharing and collaboration platform, but it's heavily used by kind of large enterprises who care about data compliance, data storage, data retention, which especially in Europe is really important, where you're not allowed, under new regulation, you're not allowed to keep all information around indefinitely. So being able to kind of control what data you have on your customers and who has access to it is increasingly more important.
Very good.
They have an API platform allowing developers to kind of integrate into that to kind of programmatically see when files are uploaded and then change them, write metadata to it, all that kind of cool stuff.
Very good. So it's online storage of data, which can be useful when traveling as an end user, as a traveler, because if you lose your device, you can then retrieve those files by just logging in on another device.
Yeah, I think these days it's very rare for people to have all their files on their devices anymore, right? I think my photos live in Google Photos. My files live in Box. Like it'll just kind of, I think these days I can wipe my phone and just switch to another phone quite easily without too much of a problem. I think 5 or 6 years ago that would have been like a daytime project, kind of just an entire day of migrating.
Yes. I seem to remember you at DroidCon Dubai a few years ago, arriving and having a broken SIM tray to a device and having to rush out and buy a new device to pop your SIM card in.
Yeah.
And that didn't have real internet access, did it?
No, that was insane. That was like one of those feature Nokia phones, like the ones that they had. And you could put a SIM into it, but like the internet was really weird. Like it wasn't. I'm trying to think what it did. Like it didn't have Twitter. You couldn't load Twitter through the website. It had its own like weird Twitter app that wasn't up to date with Twitter's newest features at all. So it barely worked. I couldn't get into my email because the email client was only like POP, and I needed IMAP. It was insane.
And that also had a numeric keypad with Arabic characters on it. How did you get on with that?
Not very good. I think that phone lasted for about 2 weeks before I accidentally binned it.
It happens. We're in the lucky position where devices are commodities that can be easily discarded nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about you? Where are you from? What's your origin? It sounds like an Italian name you have.
Yeah, no, my dad's Italian, but I'm from Dutch Italian descent, and I've lived my entire life in the Netherlands. So um, I live in London right now, but my Italian is pretty rubbish. I think your Italian is a lot better than mine, if I remember. Um, I just came back from a trip in Italy, and I still realize that all I can order is some ice cream, and that's about it. Some ice cream, some pizza, and that's how good my Italian is.
Well, it's enough to survive. Wine as well?
Wine, yeah, wine, beer, cocktails. That will be right.
Good. So you're covered for surviving traveling in Italy, which is more than many can say. That's a good start. And so you now live in London. How are you finding London compared to, say, the Netherlands?
Oh, oh, wow, that's a good question. I mean, I moved to London like 11 years ago, so I've been here for a while. But it's good. I think Brexit has put a bit of a kind of a has put a lot of our plans on hold for now. As a European citizen, dealing with that is currently very problematic. Just a lot of limbo. Um, but London is London. I don't think London is. I don't think there's any other city that compares. I've traveled quite a bit, and I don't think there's one city where I'm like, well, if I'd have to move somewhere else, I'd move to X. Um, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, especially the last few years in light of Brexit. But there's nothing that really compares. A lot of people say New York is to some extent comparable. I haven't fallen in love with New York the way I've fallen in love with London, with kind of theaters, movies, the tech scene here, as well as kind of all the other industries that are happening here.
And and also, personally, I would say that the airport infrastructure and rail infrastructure, as much as the locals complain about it, is much better in London. It's easier to travel to and from London than it is from New York, in my personal experience.
Although it's better in Amsterdam. So much better in the Netherlands.
I completely agree. That's one of the reasons I fly through Schiphol as often as I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you live, that's kind of crazy. I think if you live outside of London and you live in the UK, often it's easier to fly through Schiphol because it's, as we say, Schiphol.
I need to work on my guttural Dutch. Apologies.
Yeah, it's strangely easy to just fly through Schiphol and then fly from there to other destinations, because it seems like KLM covers the rest of the UK better than British Airways does.
Yes, they definitely do, and that's why one of the reasons I'm a loyal KLM customer. So speaking about travel, you obviously mentioned you used to work at PayPal and Braintree, and then you were freelancing, and now you're just starting your new job at Box. What sort of business travel do you do? How often do you travel? What's your preferred airline?
So when I was at PayPal, my preferred airline was Virgin Atlantic, and there was a reason for that. The reason for that is because at the time, PayPal still had a policy that if you flew over a certain amount of hours, you were allowed to fly business. But you still want to stay within budget. You have a certain amount of travel budget a year on a team, and Virgin to San Francisco is a lot cheaper than BA, right? So if you're going to build up loyalty points, that's a lot better. I mean, a lot of other people fly kind of on the Lufthansa, United. What is that? That's not
The Star Alliance.
But United is just bad, just really bad. I don't want to fly United. So Virgin, and at the time I was saving up points to for my honeymoon to fly to Japan. So I was saving up enough Virgin points to kind of do a business trip for the two of us to Japan. But But obviously, like half a year before our trip, they Virgin canceled all the flights to Japan. So then we were stuck with a lot of points that we couldn't spend to our trip that we were planning to do. So we ended up flying via Hong Kong. When I was working at PayPal, I flew enough to get gold status on Virgin on kind of intercontinental flights, and then get gold status on BA on just Europe and kind of Europe and other flights. Lately, the last few years, I've just been sticking to BA One World, mainly because I live pretty close to City Airport here, and I have family in the Netherlands. And for 9,000 Avios points and 35 quid, I fly from City Airport here to Schiphol and back. And it's by far the most convenient airport for me to fly through, because I can get up at like 6, hop into a taxi, 20 minutes later be at the airport, walk through straight, because they have like really late check-in. Like you can show up like 20 minutes before your flight and still go through security, walk onto the plane, and 45 minutes later I'm in Schiphol. It's so convenient compared to like Gatwick or Heathrow, which is like an hour and a half just to get there, and then you want to build in the buffer to get there and make sure you're on time and have a bit of a buffer in case a train is delayed or whatever. So
London City is a great airport. From plane to train, it is less than 15 minutes in my experience, even at rush hour.
Yeah, it's amazing. I flew from City the other day to New York.
Oh wow!
On Aer Lingus, so from here to Dublin, and then from Dublin to New York. Quite an experience. I was like, this is perfect. Like, just land, and after I land, like less than 45 minutes later, I'm home, which is amazing.
Very good. And did you do your US customs clearance in Dublin, or did you do it when you got to New York?
Yeah, Aer Lingus does the clearance in Dublin. It was the first time I did that. That was quite an experience as well. I think the way back was very weird as well, because when I flew through, because so this was to San Francisco. So in San Francisco, on the way back, I went at a domestic terminal, right, not at the international terminal. Didn't go through passport control. I just went through security. Flew to Dublin, got out, basically changed terminal. Again, the only person there checking my passport was an Irish border agent. And then I flew into City, and I flew as if I was flying domestic. So I didn't have to go through security here either. So on the way back, the only people who checked my passport were the Irish. It's just from the US to the UK, and the only people who checked my passport were the Irish. It was like...
Interesting. In light of Brexit and potential changes to border practices, that might be, I'm saying this with inverted commas, feature that they might need to look at.
Yes, exactly. It was all too easy, I'd say.
Yes, you coming back, bringing those Hershey's chocolates.
Oh no, I don't like Hershey's chocolate.
Yeah, it's not really that good, but they package them well.
That's true. I've had a lot of people on the call, on a lot of the listeners or what.
Yes, our listeners it's still an audience we're building, but they have some pretty polarized views on things such as chocolates, pineapple on pizza, types of beers and wines. It's an interesting group. And obviously, if you're listening or watching this episode of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast, let us know your thoughts on these subjects in the comments, both on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast website and on YouTube, where you'll be able to watch this episode after the show. Obviously, live interaction is preferred, but go ahead. Give us a subscription and a like as well whilst you're at it. Okay, so moving on. You travel a lot for work. I see you've been in Italy recently. When you travel, have you optimized your process of packing? What's your preferred way of packing for a trip?
Oh, Yeah, my wife is more organized with this than I am. She has like a checklist of stuff where every time I do it, I just go through and just look at things and just go, do I have everything? I used to have like 5 or 6 different bags, and I've pretty much standardized on 2 nice bags that I have now. 2 to-me bags, which I really like. One of them is this one. It's just like a backpack, and then I've got a second one which is like a more of a kind of a, what do you call it, like a, not a tote bag, like a big kind of tube basically, where you just push in everything from the top. So this one is great for like a 1-day trip. The other one I can do 3-day trips in if I want to. But then I've got a whole bunch of these. I think I got these on like Delta flights at some point. These kind of like little kind of like bags that they give you when you fly business class, and I've collected those over time. And I just tend to have all my stuff in there. So really all I need to do is just throw all these bags in my bag, and then I'm pretty much done. And then it's just clothes.
Okay. And we think we've narrowed down, both our audience and ourselves have 2 clothes packing methodologies. Do you roll, or do you use packing cubes, or a mix of the 2?
Neither.
Okay.
It's the thing I notice is the rolling is interesting, but it's less flexible because you're stuck to the shape of the roll that you end up with, right? That's the problem. I think that's my problem with the packing cubes as well. You have to fit everything into the packing cubes, but then it becomes less flexible to just wedge other stuff in between. I like to buy like bottles of booze or stuff like that when I'm abroad, and then it becomes a lot less easier to just easily kind of pack that in safely in between all your other clothes. So I've never really felt the need for it. I've done the rolling for a while. I've got a few of the packing cubes, but I mean, these are effectively my packing cubes, right? But it's more for all loose stuff. Clothes just go in loose, just fold it up.
Very good. And what sort of gadgets do you take with you? What's the things that make your travel experience better?
I think the number one thing is this thing.
Your headphones.
Headphones. These are the so I'm going to take them off for a second talk. These are the ones. I think they're the QC 25, 35.
Okay. I have a set of Bose QC 35 2 second edition, which are the ones with Google Assistant. Do you have Google Assistant in yours?
Yes, these are the 2s. Yes.
Yeah. They're fantastic headphones.
And I love them for 2 reasons. First of all, I think I bought them at the airport at some point on a whim from one of those machines, and they came charged. And I think I went a long haul flight to the US for a day trip, was there for a day, flew back, and I didn't charge them the entire way. And when I get back, they were still charged. The battery life on it is absolutely amazing. But the other thing that is amazing, it has memory for like multiple devices, and it can even be connected to 2 at a time. So I can pair it with my laptop and with my phone and with my tablet and with my watch, and whatever I do, it's connected, and I just flip the toggle on the side and it just switches between which one it's synced with at any time. Like, that's such a miracle compared to like all the headphones where you constantly had to like unpair them and then pair them with another device, and then like that was just a pain. And this is just amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree that the Bose QC35 2 are a really good set of headphones. The only issue I've had with them is this year in Scotland we've had an unusually warm and sunny summer. They get a bit warm. I need to wear different headphones for doing sports because they're too warm.
I've got these like hella cheap Anchor ones, which are like just these Bluetooth ones. I mean, none of the same fancy features. I've just got them synced with my phone, and that's it. But you know, traveling, these are amazing.
Noise cancellation on long flights on those Bose QC35 is second to none in my experience. and I've used Sony noise cancelling headphones. I've used what was the other ones? JVC ones. The Bose are a step above everyone else.
Yeah, and you can. The thing I didn't know is there's an app for it. With the app, you can actually control these days. You can control the level of the noise cancelling, so you can either turn it off, on, or kind of halfway there. And halfway there is good if you say you're a woman and you're walking on heels, right? You might hear the heels through, because it's the way it's set up. You might hear the kind of the bouncing. If you turn it halfway, you don't hear it. Or if it's really windy, you can also turn it halfway, because otherwise you hear the wind really weirdly when the noise cancelling is turned on. So you can kind of turn halfway there, and that works really well as well.
Yeah. And have you managed to sleep in them?
No, they're a bit bulky for sleeping, because you kind of have to really lie backwards. But to be fair, I have no trouble sleeping on a plane. But they're not comfy for kind of lying on your side on it. Have you tried that?
Yes, well, I've been testing out some travel pillows, so neck pillows for Tech Travel Geeks. And depending on the type of pillow you're using, the Bose headphones, because of their size, can be good or bad. Some of the neck pillows will just push them off your head.
Yeah, I just tend to fall asleep like against the window, like that.
So not an issue there. Do you use a travel pillow?
No.
No.
No, I mean the idea of a travel pillow is nice, but carrying it around the entire trip with you is just a pain, I find. It's just not worth it. I want to be able to fit everything in a tiny bag when I'm flying long haul, and then have my suitcase checked in. I don't want to have to deal with like a big bulky pillow. I know you've got kind of inflatable ones, but they're not as good as the bean ones. So
they're never as good.
Yeah, it's kind of the convenience of carrying it with you versus being able to sleep. And I have no trouble just passing out.
Okay. So we should have Lukasz joining us now. I'll just add him to the call. He is back. In the meantime, what is your mobile device of choice? What's your smartphone that you use at the moment?
I've got a OnePlus 5.
You're still on the OnePlus 5. That's the 16:9 aspect ratio screen.
I've got two of them now.
Oh, you've got two. Oh, excellent. And how's the NFC on it?
The NFC is really good.
Good. So much better than the OnePlus 3, which you were having NFC issues with a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, no, that did get repaired. It was just the NFC just died, just the chip just died, so it just had to be repaired. But it's one of those things where you tell them. It's one of the problems with this is why I still love Apple, because Apple, you walk into the store and you go, this doesn't work, and they just believe you and they go stuff for you. When you deal with these kind of companies where it's kind of all remote, you give them a call and you say, look, the NFC doesn't work. And their first response is, have you tried reinstalling the OS? It's like, yes, I've tried that. And then, have you tried reinstalling the firmware? It's like, yes, I've tried that. But yeah, I'm still using the 5. And I really keep second one as a backup one.
Very good. And obviously, you're engaged in filling the internet with cat pictures, much the same as I am. And how are you finding the camera on the OnePlus 5?
I really like it. I mean, it's nothing compared to like the iPhone X or something like that. It's a good job for me. It's a lot better than what I used to have. I used to have a OnePlus X, and the camera on that was just atrociously slow.
Okay. So
things. Nope.
Apologies, we were getting a bit of noise coming in from Lukasz there. Hopefully he'll get his microphone sorted. Lukasz has just joined us, for those listening who are waiting this arrival. Okay, so OnePlus 5, Bose headphones. Do you find that your battery in the OnePlus 5 is enough during a trip? Do you carry a charger or a power bank?
I carry a charger. I've got one of these, again, Anker. I love Anker as a brand. I've got one of these kind of chargers. I'm looking to upgrade at some point to one of the power delivery banks that they've got, which are a bit bigger, but it means I can charge my phone, my laptop with it as well. The battery life, if I turn on the battery saving mode, it's amazing. Like but I think the main thing that I love of the OnePlus 5 is just the dash charging, like the speed charging. So I tend to bring my my real charger, the adapter, with me as well, because you plug it in a wall in 30 minutes, you get 80% battery or something like that, and that's. I know it's not the only phone that has that kind of stuff, but that is such a game changer compared to a few years ago when every phone just would take quite a while to charge. I'm less concerned about making the day than being able to find a power socket for half an hour.
Yeah, that's good. So Lukasz, you watch the videos from OnePlus on Dash Charge. Is that something you think is key, or do you think it's always wise to have both the power bank and Dash Charge, or the quick charge equivalent with you at the time?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'm late today. For me, to be honest, I'm always behind with my charging. So usually, quick charge is good. I keep on forgetting to charge my phone. So quick power up is always good. I'm on Samsung, so I have their version of quick charge, which is quite good. I personally don't use the wireless charging too much. Haven't found the need just yet. But usually, yeah, quick charge is always good especially on travels. That's where I find it most useful.
Very good. Okay then. So that you mentioned you're a part of the loyalty scheme, Cristiano, both for BA and Virgin, and you probably have all other alliances sorted as well. Do you have any tips and tricks for listeners of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast on what best practices to do with each loyalty scheme are, or if you just have any tips there?
I mean, I'm only on BA these days. I'd say, I mean, I used to be, because I used to, when I was working at PayPal, I used to be part of quite an international team. And the thing that I really noticed is it only makes sense to be part of the loyalty scheme of your local airline, because they inevitably are going to have the best flights, the easiest flights, the most often flights everywhere you want to go. Now, I think for you, that's probably KLM is probably your local airline.
Yes, despite being in the UK, KLM seems to serve me better for international travel.
But like if you live in New York, probably signing with one of the US airlines is a lot easier than signing. Again, if you're in France, signing with Air France or something like that makes a lot more sense. So as to which one you should pick, really like pick the ones that is part of one of the big kind of loyalty scheme programs. So either SkyTeam, One World, or Star Alliance. And then you'll be fine. And just make sure you sign up for an account and you collect the points. A lot of people, when they start traveling, they don't collect early on, and it's just like you're just missing out. Just sign up. If the points expire, they expire. If you save up enough points, you've got a nice trip.
Yeah, not only that, it's not just for the points. It's also in case of any issues such as strikes or flight cancellations, the airlines will look after their passengers who are part of their loyalty schemes first before any other passengers. So it may sound almost pointless because those points you may never use, but in the case of a flight cancellation, you will be looked after first if you're part of the loyalty scheme.
Yeah, you don't even have to reach all the way to like the gold level on these programs either to really get some benefits. I think from BA Silver, you get access to the lounge, which means if you're in a busy airport, you can kind of get away from the busyness and kind of just enjoy some peace and quiet in a corner, grab a coffee, grab a drink. lounge quality really differs. Lounges tend to be really good in the cities that the airline is from, like their local kind of key hubs. In the other ones, they're often kind of aligned with their partner airlines, and that can really differ. Like especially the US lounges can be really poor compared to, say, BA's Heathrow lounges that they have. Like I said, I used to fly on Virgin. I've stopped doing that because it turns out it's quite easy to collect points, but it's really hard to spend them. I used to be Virgin Gold, and one of the things that most people don't know is like as you grow through these levels, these loyalty levels, you get not just certain benefits, but you also get access to more seats that you can use the points on. So even though I was Virgin Atlantic Gold, I could barely find flights to spend the points on, especially through their partner airlines, which was a pain. So the partner airlines were Delta, ANA, the Japanese one. And it was really hard at the time because we were trying to find a flight from London to Tokyo to find reward flights through their system. Where on BA, I generally find it a lot easier, even though I'm only BA Silver right now, a lot easier to find flights with them than with Virgin. So one of the reasons to pick one of the bigger kind of loyalty schemes is because they will just have more reward flights. So it makes it a lot easier to spend those points.
That makes total sense. And how do you track your loyalty schemes? Do you install the apps on your phone or tablets? How do you track that?
Yeah, the BA app is really good, like extremely good compared to any other app I've used from any other airline. It allows you to track it. I mean, the way you generally get the points assigned to you is during booking or after it's been booked, to kind of add your loyalty number to your booking. I just tend to make sure that I do that. I use the BA app, and I use an app called TripIt to keep track of like all my train, hotels, etc. It allows you to have an app on your phone, and then it stores everything offline. So wherever you go, you just have all your confirmation numbers, your details, your flight numbers, and everything on your phone. You don't need any internet. But as for like keeping track of the loyalty numbers, all the booking sites that I use just know my loyalty number. Most BA flights that I book myself, I just book through the BA site. All the flights I book for work, the booking agent knows my loyalty number as well, so he just automatically assigns that.
That's good. And you mentioned offline when talking about TripIt, which is a great app. Do you prefer paper boarding passes or in an app on your phone?
I don't think I've printed a boarding pass in years.
So that sounds like a great endorsement for digital boarding passes on phones.
Yeah, I mean, some airlines will still print them for you at the desk, but these days BA is fully like digital to most airlines. It's often more a limitation of the airport, whether or not they can handle digital booking, digital boarding passes. I think, but even like I flew to Pisa, which is a tiny airport, like a really tiny airport, and they are fully set up to take digital boarding passes as well these days.
I think those apps just killed the printer business. No one uses printers anymore. This was the main, if not the only reason for me to use a printer. I stopped using it altogether. But one more question on the loyalty scheme. With the change changes around Avios for BA, have you had any issues when this change came? Was it a few months ago?
Yeah, I haven't really paid much attention. I think, I mean, what they tend to do is just like your regular currency, Avios is a currency. So there's a certain amount of kind of inflation over time that they apply to it. So over time, every few years, they increase the amount of Avios you need to spend miles, as well as the amount of Avios you receive. I think they made it a little bit harder to collect Avios, or a little bit harder to collect tier points. I think mainly that was the main thing that they did. So tier points are the points you need to level to your next membership level. The Avios is just your air miles, your points.
Yeah.
You can spend. I think they've now done it like if you book like a non-flexible, like a non-flexible economy without hand luggage, then basically you get only like a quarter of the Avios or something that you would get if you bought a fully fully flexible kind of return in economy with hand luggage.
No big change, though. I would say there is one historic change in the UK. The company that was the Avios travel company, which originally started off Air Miles in the UK, the Air Miles travel company, it shut down earlier this year. They had obviously rebranded, gone from being a full travel agency that offered flights using their own currency and cash to a company that only offered BA flights for cash and miles, to just essentially an extension of British Airways Iberia's loyalty scheme, and they've been completely shut down. So any people with separate Avios accounts that weren't tied directly to BA had those transferred into British Airways Executive Club accounts. So that's, I'd say, one sad footnote to the whole airline loyalty scheme. Bit of a historic one, but inevitable, because there's no need to have a separate company within the group offering the same currency and different rewards.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. So that the same one of the same people who set up the Air Miles travel company then went on to set up the Nectar loyalty scheme. It's an interesting topic. I'm sure we could go into a bit more depth on, is loyalty schemes in general. Are they worth it? What sort of travel can you do thanks to consumer spending and very small percentages of that? And would you, Cristiano, would you prefer to have some Avios from shopping online, or would you like to have a clear percentage of, let's call it, official currency? So would you prefer to go shopping through the Avios website, through British Airways, or would you prefer to shop through Top Cashback and get real money?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I prefer real money for those kind of things, right? Like for me, it's, I think for a lot of people who are heavy Avios collectors, it's a way for me to turn business spending, so money I don't spend, but the business spends, into a benefit for me, which is how a lot of these loyalty schemes build their loyalty of business customers. So for me, it's I'm not spending the money. The business I'm flying through, they're paying for me to fly to destinations, and I'm getting a certain benefit out of it, and therefore I'm sticking to their airline. So for me to turn my personal spending into Avios as well isn't as interesting as, and I also find it doesn't add that much. Like I get like 2 Avios here and 3 Avios there. It's like, that's not going to add up versus like the 800 Avios I get for flying to Italy. So in that way, I don't think it adds up. I find what I find really interesting is the American Express BA credit card, which is just not interesting if you look at it compared to the general American Express credit card. Because the general American Express credit card gives you like 1 American Express point per pound that you spend. Plus, like, I think it's like 2 for each travel pound that you spend, etc. But then you can turn each one of these points into 1 Avios point. Where if you have the BA card, it turns it automatically for you into Avios. And then you can't spend it, you can't turn those Avios easily into something else. That's a lot harder. So anybody, just don't sign up for the BA credit card. It's stupid. Don't do it.
Full disclosure to our listeners, as far as I know, Cristiano is not a financial advisor. Take that advice with a bit of a pinch of salt.
Do not sign up to that if you want to get the points. That's my point. I'm not saying.
Okay, then, so we will reclassify you as an airline loyalty advisor.
I think we're safe with that.
Good. That's good. So I think that's about it. Thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything else you would like to shout out about, apart from your website, Betta.io?
Betta.io. I'm CBET on Twitter. I still had some other gadgets here.
Oh yes, you have other gadgets. Let's see them.
This is one of my favorite things here. This was a Kickstarter, and we all know these like little we all know these like US Apple plugs, right? These which flip out nicely.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the UK plug. The UK plug is like massive and not foldable at all. It's a fully.
Ooh, okay.
It's lovely. It's amazing. It's perfect.
So they've solved the problem of UK plugs for Apple adapters.
Yes, it's a fully foldable one, and they also, with the same set, have a foldable European one.
Very good.
Yeah, I love this thing. And I just switch, before I travel, I just switch to whichever one I need. This is one of the main things I travel with quite a bit, because it just means that this tiny, because I've got a MacBook, and this tiny adapter just actually folds down to something that is quite nice and portable. You might need to explain what's happening to people who are not watching.
Essentially, Cristiano has been folding down a UK plug adapter, which is one of the least friendly for compact traveling, into something which is almost to the profile of Cristiano's Apple laptop charger. Interestingly, I've seen a lot of other travel adapters, usually multi-USB ports, with the same plug adapter solution crop up on Amazon and AliExpress. And I actually have one which I use because it has Quick Charge 3, which is useful with some of my devices. So yes, plugs and plug adapters are very important for travel, especially if you travel frequently to countries other than your own. Will we ever reach a common standard?
No.
Apparently the EU wants to ask and force Apple to use USB-C. So we'll see how that works.
Well,
yeah. This thing is called a Tofu Zen Life. And it was a Kickstarter. I'll share the link later.
That's great. We will pop that in the description of the YouTube channel and the blog post.
I think
what apps do you use for, say, podcasts, audiobooks, and music on your devices?
Oh, I use Plex for podcast lately, because I use Plex for videos and TV shows and stuff as well.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's one of the ones I use, and Audible, just for audiobooks.
Very good. A friend of the show, Ian Bird, will be happy to hear that you too are a Plex user.
Is he on the Plex team? Or?
He is, yes.
Excellent.
I believe his official title is Director of Engineering at Plex.
Excellent.
So yes, shout out to Ian. Thanks for watching the show. And any other gadgets or things?
I think let's limit it to one more, because we do want to keep it in time. I have one more thing, which is also a Kickstarter. It's about the size of a credit card, but in it is, and I love this thing, in it is an entire USB cable, right? So this is USB-C to USB-C. But inside of this is also the little adapter for switching it to micro USB, to Lightning cable. There's a SIM adapter removal card in here, pin in here. there's a USB, like a full USB connector in here as well, so you can actually plug it into like a laptop or something. As well as it's got 2 spots for SIM cards. That's the just a full USB. As well as it can function as a light. So there's a light in here, and if you plug it into a laptop, it can function as a light. And here on the outside is a stand for putting your laptop, your phone on.
Oh, excellent!
it's one of these things that's just got way too many features in it. But I carry this with me, and this is basically just my cable that I plug into my battery pack or into other things. And the nice thing is that with this, I've got basically the cable with me that I need for anything. So rather than bringing like seven different kinds of cables, I just have this thing with me. And if I need to charge my headphones or something, I just pull out this thing, connect the right connector to it, and get going. So it's something that makes my bag just a little bit lighter because I don't need to bring more cables and more adapters. I just bring one battery pack, one plug, and plug everything in.
That's great. And what's the name of that product?
This is called a cable cart.
Cable cart. Excellent.
Again, it was another Kickstarter, but I'm pretty sure they've made more than just the Kickstarter requirement.
Well, that definitely looks like something that needs to be reviewed on Tech Travel Geeks. I think solves many of my cable problems.
Yeah. One last question, if you don't mind. You mentioned OnePlus 5 as your main device. Is it also your main camera that you use, or do you use some other camera on your travels?
Yeah, we already discussed. I think the camera. Yeah, it is my camera mainly for on travels. I have a DSLR that I haven't touched in a while, like most people, I think. I think the camera on the OnePlus 5 is good enough. I'm looking forward to upgrading to a OnePlus 7 at some point, but eventually. I've had this one for a year now, and the camera is really good. The portrait mode is pretty fun to play with. It does it for me, especially considering I used to have a OnePlus X where the camera was absolutely atrocious.
And if you want to see Cristiano's pictures, you can follow him on Instagram. I think you're Cristiano_Betta.
Yeah, because somebody took Betta already. So.
So yes, you can see not only pictures of him running on Strava, but also lots of cat pictures.
Mainly cat pictures. I mean, the camera is fast enough on the OnePlus 5 for me to take photos of my cats who won't sit still for 5 seconds. So I guess that's just a confirmation that it's an okay camera.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, then I think we can wrap up now, unless you have another out of field Kickstarter gadget to show off.
No, not all Kickstarter stuff, but this isn't Kickstarter.
Yes, let's call it a legacy Kickstarter.
Yes, exactly. No, we'll keep it at that.
We'll keep it at that. Great. Well, thank you very much for being on the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. We as we mentioned, see Betta on Twitter, Cristiano_Betta on Instagram, betta.io on the internet. Anywhere else people can follow you?
No, those are the main ones. That will do.
Great, and congratulations on the new job at Box.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming along, and thanks for joining us, Lukasz. And Lukasz, where can people follow you?
I'm on Twitter, Elsuliga. I'm on Instagram, Lukasz_Suliga, I think. I keep on forgetting what my Instagram is. And you can find me on Tech Travel Geeks as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And so, as we mentioned earlier, you can subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks podcast on the website, techtravelgeeks.com. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Pocket Casts, on Google Podcasts, and more syndication networks to come soon. Obviously, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, where you will get not only this podcast, but some of Lukasz's excellently edited video reviews of content and devices we think are useful for travel. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. We shall speak to you next week. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.